Dual blades are just something out of this world. They are easy to use, they are flashy, they look amazing, and they have some of the best kill times when it comes to builds. And in here, this build, I am going to warn you, this is going to be a very endgame build. You are going to require to have a whole bunch of decos for this to work, although I am going to give you a couple of recommendations that you can have in here, around here. And if you don't actually have the stuff that we have in here, that it is going to contribute to your damage and to your survivability, things like that. But I am going to guide you on how can you start making this build. Have this build be viable before you actually have the stuff that I'm going to show you right in here. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. We're going to start first with the armor. For the armor, you're going to need the Arc Vulcan Mail. This is going to have 1 level of Weakness Exploit. The G Arc Veil Van Braces is going to have 2 levels into Weakness Exploit. And our final 2 levels into Weakness Exploit are going to come from Arc Vulcan Coil Beta. And then for the helmet and the greaves, it's going to be the Go greaves right in here. This is going to have antivirus, and then this guy is also going to have coalescence. Not only that, but it's also going to have the Black Eclipse, which we'll talk about in a little while. Now, before we actually start getting into the Artian weapons, let me give you a couple of recommendations, because there are very good recommendations that I can give you for master weapons that you can start using if you don't have a perfect Artian weapon. I am going to show you what is the perfect Artian weapon that you should be looking for. Let's actually talk about the master weapons first. Things that is nice to have as the base first skill, and things that you should be avoiding like the plague. Things that you should be avoiding like plague is going to be punishing draw and critical draw. You're not going to be doing draw attacks with the daggers. As a matter of fact, more often than not, you are going to be using like flurry of attacks. And a very good thing to have is also Power Prolonger, because Power Prolonger is going to allow you to sustain your the various demon modes that you have available at all times. So that's very useful. But also the focus is very useful as well, because this can help you to build your Archdemon mode for whenever you don't have stamina. You can still sustain the Archdemon mode, and also have in mind that having this focus and feel that Archdemon mode is going to improve the amount of times and that you're going to be able to do your Y and B combo, which is the most damaging combo that you have for your dual blades right in here. So those are the things that you should be trying to get at all times. But also the only ones that have critical boost, and the ones that I advise for you to use as your fire daggers, is going to be the Wyvern Lovers, because they have a pretty decent amount of white sharpness, but they also have critical boost in here, so you can just slot a 3 elements in here, and a 2 razor sharp and a 1 critical boost. We'll talk about that in a little while. And then for water, a very similar types of water daggers that you're going to have is going to be the Master Savers. These have a decent amount of white sharpness as well, but they also have focus. So in there you already have water and fire for enemies that are going to be weak to water and fire, with cool skills that have nice sharpness and things like that. Now you will notice that my Artian weapons are 1,000 times better than these ones, and yes, we'll talk about that in a little while. But also my personal favorite dragon daggers or dual blades that you're going to find right in here, which is also very easy to get them, because you can use Molest and Odogaron, which is the monster that we're going to be hunting at the end of this video, and you will see how fast are we going to kill that little cunt. But I can't stress enough how much I like these daggers, because they have decent attack, they have a decent affinity, they have decent dragon element, and they have a very nice amount of sharp wide bar for sharpness. So those are my recommendations for the master weapons that you should be using. But then again, it's always going to be better Artian weapons. What do you want to have in your Artian weapons? Artian weapons are going to be able to cap the elemental damage, meaning that you're going to deal monstrous amounts of damage to elemental weakness for the enemies that you are fighting. And the ideal thing that you would want to have when you're crafting your Artian weapons is going to be 3 element boost. As you can see, I almost got it with my water daggers right in here. I didn't manage to get them. I've been doing a whole bunch of different weapons for a whole bunch of different builds that we're going to be uploading here on the channel, but for my daggers I decided that I wanted to make them water, and I haven't been able able to get a better one than this. So the ideal thing for you to have is going to be 3 elemental boost with 1 sharpness boost, and then the final one, either attack or affinity, it's just going to be just fine. It's not going to be consequential. The ideal thing would be to have 4 elemental boost and 1 sharpness, but hey, who's that lucky, right? I can promise you that I burned like 20 weapons, 20 Artian weapons trying to get it, and this is the best that I could come up with. If I was able to get like 3 element boost and a sharpness boost, I would be just happy with that, because if you compare them to, for example, the Master Sabers, which are a very, very good choice, you will see that these guys have more damage. They also have more affinity, but they have a monstrosity more of the elements. If I were to lower that affinity, extra affinity that I got right in there, I would still have more damage. I would have the same affinity. As a matter of fact, the affinity is not going to be that important, because the build is going to maximize the affinity more often than not. We are going to be on 100% of affinity at all times. But yeah, you want to maximize the elemental damage so that you can cap the elemental damage once you activate your coalescence. So that is what you want to have with your Artian weapons. At the very least, 3 elemental boost, 1 sharpness boost, and then the final one, either affinity or attack. It's not going to be, like I mentioned, consequential, but if you can get a final 4th, that's going to be ideal. So as for the decos, the decorations, you are going to, if you're using, for example, a Artian weapon, you're going to be using the elemental weapon, 3 levels of the elements that you are using, so that you can maximize your elemental damage. 1 razor sharp of level 3, ideally with a something that is going to be nice. I wanted to have KO both on the stream jewel and the razor sharp jewel, because these guys really exhaust amazingly the monsters that you fight against. So yeah, they're actually quite good at toppling down monsters because of how much burst damage you deal on 1 input. And then the final one is going to be a critical jewel level 3. And as for the armor, 3 bursts jewel, because we want to have burst at the maximum level. We are going to pair that up with the Chain Talisman level 2, and then we're going to need 1 Phoenix Jewel, because this is what's going to enhance a little bit more our Coalescence. This is going to be 10% more damage whenever you activate Coalescence. We'll talk about that in a little while. And then finally, we are going to need 2 Saint Jewels, because we already have 1 from Antivirus from the armor. So 2 of these guys right here is going to give us 3 levels into Antivirus, which is going to allow us to clear the frenzy status that we are going to get from the Gourmet Gala armor set, so that we can get more affinity from this. And then finally, since these are weapons that you're going to be dodging like a maniac, and you do want to have the perfect dodges at all times, my advice is that you slot the physique jewels in here. 5 physique jewels. The final one, you can use the jewel if you're going to be playing multiplayer. You can use the jewel that it doesn't allow for the enemies to for the allies, the friendly fire one. You know what I'm talking about. And then we have the growth jewel, which is just more DPS, although it's not going to be that much, because you're going to be killing things so fast that it's just not going to be like funny at all. Consequentially, if you don't have the Chain Jewel, because these are the most difficult ones to get, these are level 3, and the Burst Jewels are actually kind of difficult to get. This is just more DPS, but you could also craft at the Melder the Evade Extender if you, and you can use that as the endgame build if you want to have Commodity. That is going to be a build that is going to help you to manage the fight a little bit better. If you feel that you're not dodging that well, that much, this is a quintessential part of the build you want to be dodging to enter into that extra damage mode. But ideally, what you should be striving for is going to be 3 Chain Jewels in here. If you don't have the Burst Jewels in here, just use Evade Extender, which then again, if you do it that way, all of the things that I'm showing you right here, you're going to be able to craft them at the Melder. Aside from the jewels that we have in the weapon, that is, of course. Now, assuming that you don't actually have a good Artian weapon and you want to be using, for example, a monster elemental weapon, then your jewels are going to change a little bit in here. Naturally, of course, you are still going to need the water boost, at least the elemental damage for your specific type of weapon. If you have something cool on it, like for example, I have Slugger right in here, which I very much love. And then you're going to have a Razor Sharp level 2. It's not going to be a level 3, but it is going to be a level 2, so that's actually going to be helping you quite a bit as well. And then the final one is going to be critical boost. Remember that the level 3 is just vanity, because you're only getting 6% increase in damage in here. A level 1 is going to give you 28, which is going to be a huge boost. So like I said, yes, the level 3 is just going to be amazing, but a level 1 in here, it's going to make a huge difference once you slot it into a master weapon, and this is how your build should be looking like if you're using a master weapon. It's a very fun to use build, and ideally what is happening in here is that we're using Coalescence. Coalescence is going to increment your elemental damage, your elemental status, and then your elemental defense. We are using Coalescence because we have the Eclipse, which basically inflicts you with Frenzy for your every time that you're fighting anything. And whenever you have the Frenzy, you get a +% into your affinity, you get +15% affinity. Once you clear that out with the antivirus, that is going to give you 10% more affinity. The antivirus says that it's giving you 15%, then it's actually giving you 10. So you're always going to be clearing that out. Whenever you clear that out, you're going to increase your damage because of the Coalescence, meaning that all times you are going to have that extra damage, and then you're always going to have the granted 25% extra affinity at all times. If you pair that up with the Quickness Exploit that we have in here, that's just basically at all times, if your weapon has at the very least 10% into affinity as a base, that means you have 100% of affinity at all times. And that is essentially the build. It is very powerful, and thanks to the antivirus, thanks to Coalescence, and thanks to all of that kind of stuff that we were able to slot right in there, we were able to also use the Razor Sharp, the water attack, the critical boost. We don't have to be using critical eye jewels for this build because of that very same specific purpose and reason. I am going to leave you with a fight right in here with a tempered monster so that you can see how really nasty these weapons are. If you like the content, like and very super appreciate it. Not still you today, you're a gorgeous, beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, you're on Discord. Have a beautiful day and goodbye.
always a treat to watch you work, Hunter.